This is the unrestricted free agent.
Welcome into the program. Glad you're here. And I just pulled my microphone completely off the table.
I think South Carolina's catching Clemson. I really do.
Defense, I'm going to tell you right now, they're nasty. They're going to be nasty all year.
Coach Spurrier couldn't give a damn.
Who knows what's real and what's not even anymore?
When you see black and white and you're calling it purple, I got problems with that.
And LT, I told you, it's all about the deer talk.
How about that for a start? A little bit. Hey, how are you? Good to see you on a Wednesday morning. Hope your morning is off to a good start. Technical issues challenging me this morning. Not going to get the best of me. We're fighting the fight here. Thanks for being a part of Tim Hill Unrestricted Free Agent. I slapped my name on it just to make it a little different. It's all about talking about what we want to talk about here, and it's college football, and it will be a lot of Gamecock football now, just a few days away from Saturday night kickoff against Georgia State. A bunch of talking yesterday. I see a bunch of you guys up and ready to roll this morning. What was it? It was so early. It looked like DC's comment even got kicked off our comments here. He was in like 5:53 in the morning or something like that. Roger up with a sunny outlook as usual. Good morning, UFAs from Anthony, Jason, Kens. Appreciate you guys. Yes, we see you, DC, now. Sorry for the delay off the top there. And Nick, giving the old school barnyard. Nick, quick, well done, sir. That's a good way. That puts me in a good mood to begin with. Chris on the Facebook live stream, just 3 days away, says Carolina confident on Talking Tuesday yesterday. Oh, I got to play around with the press conference a little bit. Yeah, and DC has, yeah, before 6 a.m. this morning, he's ready to go. How about that? Did you guys hear Juice Wells, transfer wide receiver from James Madison? I appreciate it. I'm guessing it might be the last time we hear him at a weekly press conference ahead of this Georgia State game. Simply asked what would be a successful, or let's see, all the guys were asked what would be a successful Saturday night to you, kind of thing. And then they are also asked what jumps out to you on tape from Georgia State. And I think that's the specific answer, that's the specific question that Juice Wells was answering here.
I ain't gonna lie, he's just gonna go out there and kill him. You know, it's not too much to it. He's just gonna go out there and ball. He's just gonna go out there and kill him. He's just gonna go out there and kill him.
Just gonna go out there and kill him. I read that and I was like, I wonder how that was delivered. The first time I heard it, I didn't even hear it. Soft-spoken, right? Just going to go out there and kill him. Confident. He wasn't the only one speaking confidently yesterday. Asked about those goals. What's a successful Saturday night? Both Cam Smith and the Georgia State transfer Jordan Strachan. And a shutout. Josh says, I love it. Cocked by 9. Nick, cold as ice. Sounded like Spurrier. No, Zach, no. I mean, maybe behind closed doors, right? That is just a classic. That is not what you want to express and have Georgia State stamp it on the bulletin board kind of deal. But, I mean, you got to like the confidence. You got to be saying it behind closed doors. DC says, wow, that's gang stuff. Yeah, that's something. That's something for sure. Wanted to play some more of the weekly press conference. Let's start. We'll steal this from our buddy Mike Gillespie over at ABC Columbia. And just relatively, as we were, Justin asks, I think appropriately, so is this setting everybody up for a close W to open and then everybody losing their minds on Monday? Maybe. But the W would be the main part there. Shane Beamer, much more standard answers as you would expect from him. Very, very savvy as always on a Talking Tuesday. Is actually second time he's done this already, so no surprise there. Wanted to play some of that for you. I'm going to go to my Twitter, play this off of Mike Gillespie's account for Shane Beamer yesterday, and really sums him up well, man. Just talking about first games. Here's Shane.
In a lot of ways. To me, I love game ones, but game ones stink in a lot of ways too. Just the preparation, because there is so much unknown. And, not that game twos are easier than game ones, but game ones, because it is so new, there's so many unknowns because you've been practicing against yourself for so long. Guys, it's the first time they went out, or it'll be the first time they go out in an environment like that. We're playing a lot of new players, freshmen, transfers as well. So just the unknown. So no, I feel like I got a better handle on things because it's my second time through, David. But as far as the nerves or any of that, no, it's still sky high. To me,
there you go.
I love
so what you would
game
expect,
ones.
what I would expect to hear from Shane Beamer in his first weekly press conference for sure. They do, from a coaching standpoint. And it's crazy how Shane Beamer can say the exact same thing. Exact same quote can be beside his name that was beside Will Muschamp or Steve Swearinger, and yet it is delivered much differently, or at least I hear it a lot differently. Yeah, he's not complaining. He's not. He's just stating fact. He's not. It was so easy to come across to hear it for me, from Muschamp, and be like, man, I don't. Why is he complaining? Why is he so burdened by the job in a lot of ways? He doesn't seem to be having, he's not finding joy there. So anxious. And he's talking about the exact same thing Shane Beamer is, but just delivers it a little differently. But that is what game ones are, for sure. And it's game one for Spencer Rattler. So I wanted to let you hear a relatively significant portion from him for our show, a little bit more than a minute here of several comments from Spencer Rattler, the Gamecock new signal caller, who will be wearing number 7. He was asked about that on the night that Jadeveon Clowney is having his jersey retired, not the number retired, number 7. So it officially will go up on Williams-Brice Stadium. They're actually putting names and numbers up on the stadium this year. How about that? I totally dropped the ball talking to Rick Sanford yesterday, who's been calling for this for a long, long time. And it's now happening. We'll talk about that next week, I promise. But so Spencer Rattler saying he's got to represent for number 7 now. And he was a big Mike Vick guy back in the day. That's how he's a number 7 guy. I think CeeDee Lamb ended up with number 7 at Oklahoma, or number 2 at Oklahoma, so he had to go back to number 7. He kind of was number 2 in high school. But I thought it was interesting to hear and see Spencer Rattler out in front going into game number 1 in the 2022 season for the Gamecocks, a sentence I never thought I would say. But let you hear a little bit from Rattler here, and then you can decide what you think about Carolina's quarterback heading into the open.
We all get on a clean little suit, get to go out there, look good. Hopefully we play good because we look good.
What are you most excited about now getting in front of the South Carolina fans for the first time?
Mm-hmm. Exactly that. I'm just excited to see all the fans out there. Hear 2001 play, Sandstorm, all that. I'm excited for it. Running out that tunnel with my team, with the coaches, everything. And, hopefully get the anxiety out the way, anxious anxiety, just fun. Ready to go vibes. Not nervous, but just excited, if you know what I mean. But it's going to be fun.
Spencer, what certain tone or message do you guys hope to set in game 1?
We just want to go out there and execute on every level and dominate. That's what we want to do. We want to go out there and not react, but do what we do and get into them. So that's the plan. We're just going to execute every play and play as good as we can. You got to keep the same mindset, which is attack. Just being here is a blessing with this team. Camp was great. Spring ball was great. Fall camp was great. So I feel like we're prepared, and we got a few more days of work, like I said, and we're just excited to play, excited to get out there. It's refreshing for sure.
Confident. I think avoiding bulletin board material, unlike Juice Wells, but the dominate is what stands out to me. Want to go out and dominate. I don't know if we've heard that from a Carolina quarterback in recent memory. And if we've we've heard it. I guess you guys remember this. Reminds me of the Gamecock, North Carolina opener a couple of years ago, several years ago. It was this press conference specifically, the weekly press conference leading up to it, where you heard buy a ticket several times from both players and Will Muschamp, and that didn't work well. Nick says, happy to hear him shut down the Oklahoma question. Say it's all about Carolina now. He's been asked about Oklahoma enough at this point. That was Phil Kornblut asking how the Oklahoma pregame tradition with the Boomer Scooter compares to 2001, and it was really interesting to see the reaction there. That clearly the advice, clearly good advice too. Anything Oklahoma, you just say, hey, I'm here to talk about South Carolina. It's moving forward. So any type of, he was also asked to compare the environments, I think, between Phoenix, where he's from, Norman, and Columbia, just kind of making his adjustment. And he mentioned that, South Carolina, nice people, good environment, not that different, a little more humid. He's used to the heat. Didn't touch on Norman at all. Clearly, that's the tact moving forward. There's no living in the past. There's going to be nothing from Spencer Rattler about Oklahoma. Nothing. Or not much. It's not surprising. And it's clearly a strategy moving forward. So that's what I expect the rest of this season from Spencer Rattler moving forward as well. Very little talk. You're not going to get a favorable reaction if you bring up Oklahoma and Spencer Rattler. And can't say that I blame him in his position. He's got nothing to gain by talking about that. I'm guessing that's probably the advice he has gotten. So confident. Talking confident is one thing. Playing confident is another, right? And ultimately, all this talking stuff is pretty irrelevant. It is for us on the outside. DC says we're going to kill him. Okay, I got to play that again. Just for entertainment value. Juice Wells.
I ain't gonna lie, he's just gonna go out there and kill him. It's not too much to it. He's just gonna go out there and ball. He's just gonna go out there and kill him. He's just gonna go out there and kill him.
I love it. And I'm totally guilty of this, right? Hyping it up, just even editing it like that, asking for more honesty, and then hyping it up. But that, again, if you back it up, as long as you back it up, you're good. And clearly no malice meant there or anything like that. And Georgia State should be saying basically the same thing, right? That's what Shane Beamer was talking about, Sean Elliott and their approach, and they should be coming in confident that they're going to win the game. That's what it is. Kens loves it. Josh, in on the new quick button. Oh, yeah, we'll get it in on the intro, Anthony. Glad you guys are in on that. To me, by far the most notable thing that happened yesterday. Because, man, you guys, and it was Eric Douglas was asked about it or brought it up. Just everything they've been doing since January. Like, this is, for those of us on the outside, we talked about the bowl game. We talked about year number 1. We talk a little bit about spring football, right, and the latest developments. But these guys, they get a couple weeks off after the bowl game, and then it's right back in it. Right back in it. Their entire lives, basically, dedicated to playing football, to getting better at football, to leading towards this first game, first time you get to show. And now we're that much closer, right? So it's a tricky balance between knowing all of that and then not letting it overwhelm you, kind of thing. Because if you think about it too much, like, wow, I would imagine that can paralyze you a little bit. Yeah, Kens, I always throw out a pregame score prediction just so you guys can understand my line of thinking. I'd say very rarely has it hit. It has hit a time or two, exactly. But yeah, I think that's part of the fun, right? Pre-game prediction, definitely do that on Friday's show. Throw a pre-game prediction out there to be on the record, just so you guys know where I'm coming from. But today's program, typically on Wednesdays during football season, going to try to get in former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth. Perry got a bunch of things going down today in his real life, real job stuff, so won't be able to join us today. And we will spend most of the show. Would love to have you guys in as well on college football at large in week number 1, because there's so many great games out there. And so we're gonna touch on as many of those as we can, get as many different opinions in on those as we can. But again, we'll definitely talk a bunch of Gamecocks matchup with Georgia State as well. It's just, we understand it. We always talk about South Carolina football nearly every single day of the year. And here we are, very close. But it's not just that South Carolina football is kicking off. It's that it's a fantastic week 1 in college football. DC says, I hope this isn't a trash-talking team like some of Muschamp's guys. Let's talk about that a little bit more. So the problem for me is awareness. Very simple. Awareness. I think, don't all of us as fans, let me speak for myself. I love when guys don't back down. I hate when guys make it all about themselves. So there's a big difference to me there. I love seeing guys play with joy. I hate seeing guys go out of their way to embarrass their opponent. And I think that's what DC's talking about. You gotta understand the situation, and you gotta do it the right way. When defensive backs, whose unit is not playing well, whose unit is not very good, biggest pet peeve in all of football, a defensive back gets burned, guys open. Either it's a bad throw or the wide receiver drops it, and the defensive back celebrates. Oh, hate it. What are you doing? Shut up. You did not do your job. Don't act like you did your job. Don't fake that confidence to everyone out there. You just showed us you're full of it. Full of it. It's the worst. The worst. Josh said, well, Muschamp's teams couldn't back the talk a lot. Nick, the attitude's great if you're able to back it up. Muschamp's guys made it about themselves. Josh says, I love watching the defense out there dancing and being loose. We all knew the offense couldn't stop anyone. I think it was Kinlaw's year. DJ Swearinger, a prime example, Nick says, getting into your opponent's heads the right way. Occasionally out of order, but that's okay. No, that is the greatest example, right? If you're going to be an emotional guy like DJ Swearinger clearly is, and you have to play football with emotion, especially on defense. Emotion and violence. It's what it is. You don't want to talk about that? That's fine. You be a hypocrite. That's what major college football defense is. Emotion and violence. Discipline. We'll throw in that to make it a three-prong attack, right? I think they probably have to be about 33% equal. Emotion, violence, discipline. Got to have all three of them. DJ Swearinger, we saw in his Gamecock career sometimes, and we see it all the time. A lot of times, this one especially against Arkansas, the emotion was way more than 33%. But 3 straight penalties? I think it was a pass interference. Then maybe a personal foul. Then another personal foul. Is that what it was? Something like that. Then it was a pick 6. No, that's what it was. I think Might have been a personal foul, then a pass interference, and then the pick six with the taunting or the excessive celebration combined. Whatever it was. He backed it up, right? His emotion did not hurt his team. It actually helped his team. And that's the thing. And Cam Smith's going to be a really interesting one to watch, right? Listening to him yesterday, he was presented with, everybody on the team says you're by far the biggest trash talker. He's like, I just want to let people know that I'm there. The ball tossed into the stands. No, it's not the worst celebration ever. You got to know if it hurts your team. If you're down 10 and you do it in the fourth quarter, it's really stupid. DJ's nickname, Chris says, is Jungle Boy Swag for a reason. One of my favorite Gamecocks. I think that's actually his handle on Twitter. And that's why he's one of nearly everyone's favorites, right? You see the passion, the joy, you understand it wasn't just about DJ Swearinger. He wasn't just trying to get the attention. He was trying to win. He was doing everything he could to get his team a win. And maybe that's what other guys think they're doing, but it doesn't come across that way. It certainly didn't come across that way in the Will Muschamp era. When your own fans feel uncomfortable about you expressing your emotions, you're not doing it right, man. You're just not. So to hear Corey Miller talk about what he's seen at practice, Corey, a guy who knows all about play with emotion and passion, and you just hear Corey talk about football, and you hear him get worked up and the whole thing. Well, one of the reasons why he was right beside Lawrence Taylor with the New York Giants for as many years as he was. But hearing that they're doing it for the right reasons, or they're doing it the right way, building the right way, that is a culture thing, man. That credit has to go back to the coach, that credit and or blame. And I think all of it is fair from the Will Muschamp perspective. And what I saw last year, Clayton White on the defensive side of the ball deserves a lot of credit. Shane Beamer as well for setting the tone. Morning to you, Craig. Well, DJ could set the tone of a game with one play. The flex after the hit during the Clemson game completely took the life out of the Tigers' offense. Well, it was the hit, I think, that did it. Then flexing on them on their field, getting a 15-yard penalty, and then that not swinging the momentum back to the other side, right? He also hurt the team with penalties. DC, I think you're being a little bit tunnel visioned here. I don't think you're seeing the big picture. It's always one of those things where sometimes your greatest strength is also a weakness, right? All of us in life, I'm sure, have seen examples of that. But you got to take the good with the bad here, too, if we're going to just go cliche. DJ Swearinger is not as good a football player if he does not bring all of that emotion. So you got to allow him to be himself. You got to make sure he gets channeled in the right ways. Clearly, it has worked out well for him. 2017 Clemson game. South Carolina wasn't there to play football. They were there to fight. 2017. I don't even remember it. I think that's how a lot of Clemson Carolina games have gone from the Gamecock perspective. I thought you would go to 2004 if you're going to go to a fight game. It is very apparent, isn't it? It's more, to me, this is where I was never sold on Jake Bentley. Watching his teammates react to him. That's where I get a lot of my impression of leadership. How do your teammates react to you? And it wasn't necessarily a celebratory thing, but it was an emotional thing. It was like his teammates felt like they knew they needed to give him space because he was going to just get a bunch of stuff out, like positively or negatively. We saw it negatively. The Texas A&M game, comes over to the sideline and slams the helmet down. Positively, UMass game, throws a touchdown pass, running down the field, celebrating at a high level. But it was by himself. And it never seemed to me, I never witnessed where it was everyone embracing and coming together in those moments. And it to me, that turned out to be kind of symbolic of Jake Bentley's tenure. The team was never together. Will be fascinating to watch how Spencer Rattler's teammates react to him, how he reacts to certain situations. The confidence is clearly there. Also, clearly got to be shaken to some degree after adversity, after losing your job, after having a transfer, calling Oklahoma a toxic situation, being completely removed from that path he was on this time last year towards the Heisman Trophy, number 1 overall NFL draft pick, right? A lot has changed in Spencer Rattler's world. What about him on the field? What about the confidence to make the play? And what about the maturity and decision-making to not force a play? We'll see. Connor Shaw, Dylan Thompson, great examples of guys clearly emotional and could celebrate, but it was never just about them, and it was one of those things. Yeah, and even Steven Garcia, right? I never kind of cringed or felt like as a leader that wasn't the right move, or his teammates weren't embracing him, kind of thing. Nick says Connor Shaw, Steven Garcia, even with his faults, were both warriors on the field, and their teams respected that. No doubt. It goes into being a leader. I had no idea we're going down the leadership route this morning, but I like it. So with Spencer Rattler, that is a lot of the fascination I have with game number 1 here. Again, it's been a long time since he's played a game in his world for sure. And so much has changed. How's it going to look on Saturday night with number 7 taking the snaps? It's going to be a blast. I think that is going to be the national interest of the South Carolina-Georgia State game, right? You're not going to see, you might not even see any highlights. You definitely wouldn't have seen any highlights of this game had Spencer Rattler not transferred to South Carolina. Nationally, I'm talking about. College football final. My buddy Matt Berry doing it late Saturday night. It's always one of my favorite things to do. Get up on Sunday and watch that with my kids. Just recapping everything. And I'm guessing you're going to get 2 plays from South Carolina. They're both going to be Spencer Rattler plays. Will they be 2 good ones? And will it be a relatively easy South Carolina win? Will it be 1 good one and 1 bad one? I don't know. None of us know, right? But I think that's the national fascination with this game. Regionally, of course, there's so many more storylines. Right? Shane Beamer and Sean Elliott coach together. Beamer was talking about how neither coach is going to decide the game. It's all about the players and the whole thing. He said the coach speak that you got to say. But they were both on that 2010 staff in Atlanta, SEC championship game for Carolina. Sean Elliott wanted the job, says he never felt like he got a chance to take the job after being the interim coach. And you lose to the Citadel, I think. And you didn't have any prior head coaching experience. Steve Spurrier is the guy that had the job beforehand. I think we can all agree with him. I agree with him. But I can see how that is very motivating to him as well, having seen everything that went down. Will Muschamp keeping him on, the only coach kept on from Spurrier to Muschamp, and then moving on to be a head coach at Georgia State, where he's done a heck of a job. And that's where I think the confidence was a little bit surprising from Carolina players yesterday. They weren't more coached up, more robotic and player speak and politically correct in the whole thing, especially Juice Wells. I'm going to play this. Who knows how many times I'm going to play this today.
I ain't gonna lie, he's just gonna go out there and kill him. It's not too much to it. He's just gonna go out there and ball. He's just gonna go out there and kill him. He's just gonna go out there and kill him.
If you watch that and you don't smile, I can't relate. I just can't relate to him. I can't relate to you. It's the attitude you got to have. And that's why Juice Wells is at South Carolina, right? He didn't come to South Carolina from James Madison to put up more numbers. He didn't come just to play in a big stadium. He came to increase competition, first of all. He came to beat up on a school like Georgia State. So we'll see if they can back it up, right? That's all part of the fun. Let's get into some of these other games. Week 1 of college football. Troy had hit us up a little bit earlier, the resident Clemson fan. What was Troy's comment? Best week 1 I can remember. There have been some really good ones, and I feel like you got to get through week 1 before you can really say anything, right? We think we know. Really, we have no idea in a lot of ways. On paper, though, certainly you can make an argument. Let's start it tomorrow night, Thursday night, backyard brawl. I love it. West Virginia at Pitt, defending ACC champions. Desmond Howard, you guys have mentioned this already. We talked about it a little earlier, making waves over the weekend. I think putting Pitt in his college football playoff prediction. They're a 7.5-point favorite. Got a buddy, former neighbor, big West Virginia fan. I just see so many parallels between that fan base and the South Carolina fan base. And they're in that period that Gamecock fans were in, I think 3 years ago, maybe, not being thrilled with their head coach. Feel like the ceiling is relatively low, but the floor isn't too low, somewhere in mediocrity land. West Virginia pulls the upset at Pitt, where there are regional rivalries there. To start the season, their season takes on a completely different kind of tone. Pittsburgh loses that game, coming off an ACC championship, but you got a new quarterback. You had your big-time receiver, Jordan Addison, transfer out of there. Then that one feels a lot different. So to me, a great Thursday night matchup, a lot of what college football is. Still, even though you got people out there saying with the realignment coming that college football, sound the alarm, how it's going to die, the whole thing. Come on. It's a great example of that. Another great regional matchup. East Carolina, NC State. Fan bases don't like themselves. East Carolina, very much the stepchild school in the state of North Carolina. NC State, very much the stepchild school of the triangle behind Duke and North Carolina. People picking NC State to win the ACC this year. Devin Leary getting a lot of run in the preseason quarterback hype rankings. This one at East Carolina, where you don't have to tell Gamecock fans, yeah, it wasn't pretty last year at all. Fortunate to get out of there with a win. 11.5 is the spread. Just a heads up there. Pitt's the 7.5-point favorite against West Virginia. North Carolina State on the road, almost exactly where the Gamecock spread is with Georgia State, 11.5. Right now, that game in Greenville, North Carolina, great way to start the day, to start the first full day of college football. NC State at East Carolina. Then 3:30. Oh, yeah, DC, we're getting into them, man. Bunch of good games this week. Yeah. 3:30. The nationally headlining game in a lot of ways, outside of the primetime Notre Dame-Ohio State matchup that we're going to get to. Second best game on paper, number 11 Oregon. At Georgia, I'm saying at Georgia for sure. The game's in Atlanta. Technically a neutral site. Get out of here. All Georgia fans will be there. Maybe some Oregon parents. 17 is the spread. Georgia favored by 17. Oregon, like the entire perception of Oregon, I feel like, in limbo, right? Are they going to the Big Ten? Are they going to be the big dogs in the Pac-10-ish moving forward? Does anybody, do they know? Do they even know what they want? Can they compete in game number one against the defending national champs who have got a lot to prove, lost a lot, especially on defense, but have a lot on the roster from a recruiting standpoint, talent standpoint, the whole thing? There's a reason it's 17. Whew. Same time. So that's the week 3 opponent for the Gamecocks. Week 2 opponent also playing. Exact same time. Another top 25 matchup. This spread much closer. Less than a touchdown. Arkansas favored by 6 at home against Cincinnati, coming off that college football playoff game. I think I'll be paying more attention to this game than I will the Oregon-Georgia game. We'll see how those games go. Certainly expecting this game to be closer, but not going to surprise me if Arkansas pushes them around, gets that thing rolling. How effective can Cincinnati be stopping the run? KJ Jefferson and company. You got to do that to be in the ballgame. Cincinnati could do it last year enough, not at the college football national championship level, but one game away, man. It's going to be really fascinating, too, for an early SEC reputation kind of game. Same with Georgia, but I feel like everybody respects Georgia. Everyone expects them to be one of the best teams in the country coming off the national championship. Arkansas is not that. They were back in the day. Felix Jones, Darren McFadden. Easy to respect that. 19 straight losses in the SEC with Chad Morris, headed to Sam Pittman, and then now Pittman has him bouncing back in a big way. I think very much an SEC country story. I don't know how much nationally, but I know Arkansas fans feel like they can take that next step this year. That KJ Jefferson could be the guy who takes them there. To me, that's also a program that very much is relying on their quarterback. And I don't know how much is beyond that. Over under for Oregon and Georgia, about the same as Arkansas and Cincinnati, 52 and 53. 53 for the Georgia game there, Craig. Or Chris, sorry. And just a point difference in the other one. Feel like Florida's in trouble on Saturday, DC says. Good point. So let's go to them. They're next. Yeah. Well, this is another fascinating SEC reputation game, right? And probably more so here. I don't know. Well, more people talk about Florida around the country than talk about Arkansas, very simply. National championships will do that. A new coach will do that as well. The Billy Napier team picture will do that too. When you got 140 staffers versus 119 players, I think it was 116 players. Okay, I was thinking about that. Popped in my head earlier today. Like that is insane. Insane to have more staff members than players. And Utah going in, defending Pac-12 champs, I think have finally started to earn national respect. But you go to Florida, a team that finished 6th in the SEC East last year, had to switch head coaches, season opener, and you don't beat Florida in the Swamp right now, September 3rd, 2022, I think the thought would be, well, when could you ever beat Florida? And it seems to be Utah's at near its peak, Florida's at near its floor, and yet, you guys seen the spread on this thing? 3. Utah's favored by 3. So I would say, DC, if you feel like Florida's in trouble Saturday, you might want to make an investment on that one. Georgia doesn't play a ranked SEC opponent until Kentucky week 11. Kent State and Samford, give me a break. Yeah, their schedule is brutal. Troy has gone out of his way to point that out. I think 95th strength of schedule is where they are in the country. And, yeah, Troy says that out Kentucky's still ranked in week 11. Speaking of that, we need to take a quick break here from breaking down all these games. What's going on with our boy Mark Stoops? They play Miami of Ohio Saturday night, so nothing to really talk about. But did you see what he was doing yesterday? I got to show you guys this. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I had to retweet it, so if you follow the Twitter, pardon the redundancies, but I don't know if I've ever seen this in my life. You have to listen to this and tell me if you can make any sense out of this.
Well, and I have to be very conscientious of that. I expect a few of them to have multiple game suspensions, but I don't know. I really, I'll address it next week. I expect maybe one of them to be back next week, but we'll see how that goes.
Which players are suspended and which ones aren't on there?
I didn't say suspended. You did. They're unavailable to play.
What?
Well, and I have to be very conscientious.
What? Multiple game suspensions. You just said that. And then, no, you said suspended. It's like he hasn't made up his mind or, Ken, easy. That's just cruel, man. You guys are brutal. He's going the anti-Frank Martin approach, right? Ken says, why not just be bald? His head is gross. LeBron thinks he has a bad hairline from Craig. Brutal. Just brutal. To me, my head coach says that. I am very concerned. He's not listening to himself. I mean, I get it. This is classic college football in a lot of ways, right? Your star running back is a dummy and gets arrested, and you got to do something about it. Not Chris Rodriguez is not playing in game number 1. And apparently, I mean, maybe you're going back and forth with your athletic director. Maybe the SEC's weighing in. Maybe there are a bunch of factors, but that's your job, man. That's what you get paid. $6.5 million, I think. Mark Stoops, you guys know how many games career he's over 500? He's 6 games over 500 in his career. 59 and 53 at Kentucky. That's it. And I think this time last year basically went in 500 overall. What are you doing? What has been going on with Mark Stoops here in the last several, I got to go, 6 weeks back? Was that the SEC Media Days that we didn't hear about Marty and McGee until weeks later, almost a month later probably? The shot, the sunglasses comment that clearly wasn't meant as a shot at Shane Beamer and the whole thing. Guys, he needs a hat, Troy says. Chris, Stoops is losing it quicker than he's losing his hairline, LOL. He needs a straight razor. All right. No. Sounds like a guy that's losing control. To me, it does sound, it reminds me of Dan Mullen, where I was with Dan Mullen going into last year. Like, what was going on? Dressing up like Darth Vader, nearly starting to fight at midfield, coming off the field, trying like a professional wrestler, trying to incite the crowd, making the kind of tone-deaf comment about, well, if Texas A&M can have a bunch of fans, then we need to pack the stadium in the COVID-sensitive times. Crazy. RL says, good to hear from you, RL. I think it's been a while. Mark Stoops sounds like he is of two minds, and he looks like each kind has its own hairstyle. Wow. You guys are all over it. Nick says his costume would be John Wayne Casey. Wow. the last thing you want to be as a coach is a distraction. Exactly. And Daddy-O says, well, reality set in that he's actually coaching football at Kentucky. I saw one bold prediction. I think it might have been CBSSports.com that Mark Stoops will end up being the Auburn coach after this year. Those bold predictions. I am glad we are moving closer to the season so we don't have to keep doing that. But that was just one of the strangest press conference moments. I mean, that's up there here recently with Champions of Life at Tennessee, with Jim McElwain, and the whole shark picture and the family and the death threats, basically, and not being able to back that up and that weirdness, right? We see some weird stuff in the SEC. The Dan Mullen stuff that I'm talking about, the Darth Vader Halloween costume. But, I mean, to do that to yourself, Mark Stoops did that to himself. He said, thinks probably be multiple game suspensions. Let's ask about the suspended players. No, that's what you said, not me. What? Yeah, I know, and he said that, no, they're good now. He and Calipari are good. Nick, how could you forget about Champions of Life? You can't forget that. I understand Tennessee thinks they're all past their issues and moving right back into the upper echelon of college football with Josh Heupel in year number 2. Easy there, Vol fan. Just what Auburn needs, sawdust in the gearbox. Yeah, I don't see that happening either. But I don't think many of us saw Brian Harsin coming over to Auburn either. So, fascinating, man. Another fascinating comment out there I want you guys to watch. Again, from my buddy Mike Gillespie yesterday. What? This was very interesting. This actually came out a while ago. And it's former Gamecock coach, Lou Holtz. You guys see this? Because we'll get to another game here in a second. So, Florida, really interesting matchup. To me, it's playing with house money in a lot of ways, right? Billy Napier loses to the number 7 team in the country in his career opener at Florida, his Florida career opener. I don't think anybody's going to bat an eye as long as they don't just get absolutely thumped, knowing the situation that he's come into. He pulls that upset. They get that win. Oh, all of a sudden, there's a ton of positive momentum with the Florida Gators. And I mean, again, the spread is 3. LSU, on the other hand, is a different situation. Brian Kelly, again, we talk about Mark Stoops being his own worst enemy. Brian Kelly kind of wrote that book, didn't he? With his Southern accent. That, again, fascinating to see for sure. So let's hear what former Gamecock coach Lou Holtz had to say about that, about just Brian Kelly in general. This was about a week ago, I think, and had slipped under my radar. Very interesting. Caught it yesterday. This is, again, from Mike Gillespie's Twitter page. And it looks like at an event called Win Without Losses. Here's former Gamecock coach Lou Holtz.
I write Brian Kelly maybe 8 positive letters during his time at Notre Dame. And I go to the mailbox every day hoping I'm going to find an answer. He never responded to one of them. So, but that's his choice. I answered every letter that came into Notre Dame. When you get a nasty letter, you write, Dear Jim. Just thought you ought to know that some idiot's writing this letter, signing your name, and hurt your reputation, and find out who it is and put a stop to it. But Brian Kelly didn't believe in that. And I'm sure he'll be very successful at LSU. He's been everywhere. But he's going to find out he's not going to be playing Toledo. He's not going to be playing Marshall. This conference is a little bit different.
Wow.
I write Brian.
I mean, that could not be more Lou Holtz in so many ways, right? But the fact that he brought that up is really interesting to me. Dr. Spit, DC says. How about that? I mean, in the way that Lou Holtz just got that passive-aggressive stuff out. Wrote him 8 letters, never responded. But that's his choice. Wow. Sure, he's going to be successful, but I always responded to everybody. And then a classic Louism there. LSU doesn't beat Florida State. Brian Kelly's in a world of hurt. And Florida State looked pretty good in week 1. Again, that was against Duquesne, a program I didn't even know existed. Good basketball school, had no idea Duquesne had a football team. Jordan Travis can make plays at quarterback. Their running backs look legit, like Florida State running backs should look. This is going to be a great Sunday night matchup, right? Especially if you're looking at it from the SEC perspective, the non-LSU fan SEC perspective. Brian Kelly and the match at LSU, fascinating. Totally fascinating. I mean, just LSU football in general is fascinating enough, right? Have you guys ever been down there? I lived a year in Louisiana, Shreveport. I went to a little school up there. And Shreveport is basically, if you guys have been out there for the Independence Bowl, you know, it's basically Texas, 20 miles away or something. And that is a world of difference from what's going on down in South Louisiana. Down in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, it is a different world. And Ed Orgeron, Mr. Louisiana. Oh, you know he does, Nick. At least he's made fun of himself a little bit and said he's got 3 accents, or raised in Boston and the Midwest there, coaching Cincinnati and Notre Dame, and now down in Louisiana. To me, it's the opposite of Shane Beamer, right? He's selling authenticity. Lou Holtz as well. I mean, Lou Holtz has his shtick. We just heard some of it, right? It's never been the authenticity play. And Lou Holtz could do that in the 80s, the 70s, even up until, 2004, the last season at Carolina. It didn't go great at the end, we all know. But turned Carolina around. It worked for him. He won a national championship at Notre Dame. You can't be those two different people, though, in 2022. And that's why we're seeing what we have seen with Shane Beamer and South Carolina and recruiting. That you saw it work with Dabo Swinney to begin with, right? You can mock him all you want to, but he is his own dude, right? Like, I think deserves what comes at him. He brings it on himself to a certain degree, wearing the pink blazer and hat and doing the gritty the other day. A great example of it while he's raising a bunch of money for breast cancer awareness and to fight breast cancer. And he's over the top and always selling in a lot of ways, but that's him. And so that has its own kind of confidence that comes along with it. Clearly, it has landed with recruits, and he deserves all the credit for what's happened to Clemson and has gotten all the credit. He's making $10 million, whatever crazy it is. But Ed Orgeron was an authentic character at LSU, took them to the top of the mountain, right, and then fell off of it real quick. Everything that got him there probably is also what sent him right down. And now you got in an opposite character in so many ways in Brian Kelly. Just a little peek behind the curtain there from Lou Holtz about not writing him back. Hilarious. Thought Duquesne was a grill. Well done, Craig. Detroit, great week. Starts tomorrow night with a backyard brawl. Yeah, that's how we started the preview in general. York, good morning to you as well. It couldn't be a much better morning from a timing perspective. We can't talk about week 1 and the matchups in their entirety without touching on Clemson at Georgia Tech Monday night. So again, Sunday night, you get to sit back, I think, and watch either the narrative be written, right? That Brian Kelly is exactly what LSU needed, bringing discipline, an outside approach. The fact that he's not naming a starting quarterback just bugs me. I've already given you that rant, but I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels running around making plays. LSU has more talent on its roster right now than Florida State. Mike Norvell still just cleaning up a massive mess. I mean, these are both just big messes. The question is, which program is less of a dumpster fire right now? And if you see this game played with a bunch of penalties, a bunch of mistakes made, I think ACC fans and SEC fans will feel good, right? These programs are still down, right? But if you see the opposite, and what I saw in that opener for Florida State was domination. It looked like a typical Florida State, but much more like a typical Florida State team than what we have seen in the last 5 years now, where they just have fallen completely off the map. Been a disgrace from a program perspective to what it used to be. Was it 13 straight top 5 finishes for Bobby Bowden? I always forget that number because it's so ridiculous. But as a college football fan, if you're not a Florida State fan, if you're not an LSU fan, you can watch that one feeling pretty good about seeing no numbers attached from a top 25 ranking standpoint to either one of these programs. And I don't know if either one, I don't think the national projections have either one pointed at that top 25 necessarily this year. They got that on Sunday night to watch. And then on Monday night, Labor Day weekend wraps up with what appears to be, on paper, a massive mismatch, but an opportunity for Jeff Collins and Georgia Tech to regain a little bit of respect from you talk about another program that's just fallen off the map. Georgia Tech was never at near what Florida State or LSU was. I get it. They had to share the national championship way back in the day, and that was a thing. And if you have a diehard Georgia Tech fan somewhere, they'll say, "Oh, Calvin Johnson and Paul Johnson was actually a really great coach." And maybe they wouldn't say that, but he was doing it differently. And Jeff Collins, when I hear him talk, can get me excited about college football. And I get the sales pitch about doing it at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, bringing them back and the whole thing, but there just haven't been enough results. He's in the spot where Shane Beamer was in danger of getting in year number 1 before that Florida win. Certainly Auburn and North Carolina stacking on top of it, that put him in another category altogether. To put the Gamecock program in an instant kind of bounce back spot. And that's what we've been talking about the last several months because of it. Where did this come from, DC? Whatever happened to Sweater Vest Jim Tressel? He got run off at Ohio State, and that was pretty much it, I believe. Maybe we're just talking about old powerhouse programs. Aren't we all ready to see historical powerhouse programs struggling to get out of their own way? Yeah, Youngstown State is where Jim Tressel went. Well done, Joe. I've been so hyped about the season starting Saturday that I've forgotten Monday as a holiday. LOL, Chris. I'm the exact same way, man. I only know it because I was talking to my sister. She's planning on taking her kids. I'm planning on taking my kids to the opener. And she said she's not too worried about the late night game because they don't have to go to school on Monday. And I was like, oh, wow. Great selling point. I'll add that to the conversation. Comes to convincing my wife to let me take my kids to the game. Georgia Tech isn't the best team in the city. Yeah, Georgia State, better football program. Now you guys are just going off the rails. We're having college football overload here, people. Nick the Quick just thinking about Red Shoes Chuck Amato. Is he around still somewhere? Great question. You guys look that up for me. You can be the researchers here on the program as we roll into hour number 2. Really appreciate you guys hopping in, all the live chat there. If you want to take it to the next level, I think now is the time too, by the way. The old call-in shows, you don't have to call in anymore. On the internet show here, on Unrestricted Free Agent, no restrictions. You can just pop right in. Talk with me. your cell phone has a camera, right? I can see you. We can just go back and forth, just like we have the guests on in here. If you're interested in doing that, if you feel like you're up to that task, you can go all the way to the top of the chat. I put the link in there most days. Just go click on that link, and I can click you right in the show. Go back and forth, man. Just like a phone call would happen on a sports talk radio show. It's just the 21st century version of it. But really appreciate you guys going back and forth on the live chat as well. So if you feel more comfortable with that, that's cool with it. I'm cool with it too. I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong. Guys, my son's been a soccer kid. He had his first football practice yesterday, and he loved it. Look out, y'all. Nice work, Josh. You got to give us an age here. I would guess 14-ish, maybe 13-ish, middle schoolish. Is that where it is? Who was the coach? That depth chart was all the Looney Tune characters. Was that Mike Leach? I think it might have been. Grayson High School, better than Georgia Tech. I believe that's the high school where Jemias Williams went. Who's coming back to Carolina now, was touched on by Shane Beamer at yesterday's weekly press conference. It was really interesting to me. Cam Smith, I was trying to think which defensive player was asked about Jemias Williams specifically. It makes the most sense that Cam Smith was that guy, being a DB who played with Jemias Williams at Carolina. And I always go nonverbal on these things. To me, that tells me a lot more than the words that these guys are coached up to say and be politically correct. And we'll get into the non-politically correct comment yesterday that I absolutely love. And he's just 8, Josh? Wow, good for you. Been a soccer kid, now at 8 years old, first football practice, and he loved it. Good for you, Josh. Yeah, I'm not, wouldn't even attempt to put my kids in full contact football until middle school. That's the plan. I don't think Tom Brady played until middle school, he said. Maybe even high school. Crazy story. But, sorry, I was back up. Jemias Williams, subject comes up. Coming back to South Carolina, Cam Smith asked about him yesterday, and he instantly smiled. And I think he concluded the comments by saying that's my dog or something like that. Like, with the way that it went down, starting at Missouri, playing most of the game, and then that Monday not being a part of the program several years ago, I had no idea what kind of reaction you might see from former teammates and what really went down. But clearly, Cam Smith and Jemias Williams are friendly because just the reaction there seemed like you can tell when Spencer Rattler was asked about the Oklahoma tradition, the Boomer Schooner, and the whole thing. Like, that was shut down, right? The physical reaction is just you're talking about something I don't want to talk about, and the exact opposite physical reaction from Cam Smith when talking about Jemias Williams, like, hey man, I like that guy. Let's talk about him. Thanks for bringing him up, kind of thing. That's the over analysis I got from body language. But another part of the local storyline for sure, the Georgia State opener, everything that goes into that, and that's why I thought Josh Pate, the late kick host, he's becoming kind of from what I'm seeing on social media, a big-time voice in college football nationally. Maybe, I don't know how to put it, because his show is on CBS Sports Network, I believe. So he's clearly a national host, but kind of an under-the-radar cult figure is not the right way to put it, but he's certainly an authority in college football right now, one of the main voices from my perspective. And I think he tweeted out specifically yesterday about the line for South Carolina only being a 12-point favorite against Georgia State at home. But the question marks, man, they're there. The lack of offensive production. Carolina beat Troy by 9 last year, didn't they? 23-14, I think the final score. How much will this year's team look like last year's team? How much could Spencer Rattler change that possibly? Or the other weapons in for South Carolina? Craig says, great age, 8 years old. They don't hit hard enough at that age to get hurt, really. Daddy-O pointed out Archie Manning wouldn't let his boys play until later either. Hey, to each your own. This is an unrestricted free agent show. You have the freedom to make that choice with your kid. So good for you, Josh. Good for your 8-year-old. Glad he's taken to it. Glad he's off to a good start. Nick Quick wanted to point out, getting back into week 1, Georgia lost 5 to the first round in the NFL and 2 to the second round. Obviously, they recruited at a high level, but they lost a lot of seniority on defense. Expecting any growing pains? Nick, absolutely not. Was this exactly what you were saying about Clemson's defense? They lost a ton of guys to the NFL. I think it was like 12 guys total off the defense or something nuts. That went on at least to get free agent contract in the NFL, and they came back and they were better. Brent Venables was that good. I think Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart, Muschamp the last several years at South Carolina excluded, are that good, but I really think it's just more talent, like you mentioned, recruiting at a high level. Those next guys coming in, they reload. I do not expect any growing pains. I don't expect them to be as dominant as last year, don't get me wrong, but I expect them to be one of the best defenses in the country. Not one of the best defenses in college football history like last year, but one of the best defenses in the country. But we'll see, man. You get tested real quick with Oregon coming in. As we get towards hour 2, or really into hour number 2, we're going to play some comments from that weekly press conference yesterday in just a second. First, I wanted to tell you about one of our sponsors here on the program, Freedom Primary Care, who I trust to care for my family. Unrestricted free agent. Freedom, the free part of that, the freedom in Freedom Primary Care. There's a reason that it's the first name in what they do, what they offer, and that is the instant attraction to me with Freedom Primary Care, especially here in 2022. They give you the freedom. They respect your freedom to choose your line of care. No intimidation or judgment, that kind of thing. They're there to help you. Responsible to you, not for you. 803-627-2447, Freedom Primary Care up in Fort Mill. Check them out. Give them a call. I recommend it highly, and it's just a different way to go about it. It is the way that I feel most comfortable right now with my family for sure, and I appreciate what they stand for. The fact that we have to talk about freedom and in your own health care and medical choices is mind-boggling to me, but that's where we are. So 803-627-2447. Again, Freedom Primary Care is in Fort Mill, South Carolina, near me, but they have telemedicine options for you as well, so you don't necessarily have to be in the neighborhood to take advantage of everything they offer. That's Freedom Primary Care, 803-627-2447. Guys, football season. Did you just hear everything we went through, man? All of those games, there's so many. How many did I write down here? I'm not a note-taking guy either. And I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games for the weekend. 8 games, like really good games that we had to talk about, or I would have gotten done with this show or this week and said, oh, man, the show is mostly about college football. How could we not have talked about that? Well, we do a lot of talking about Carolina. And when you get somebody saying exactly what Juice Wells said yesterday, I can get a little off track.
I ain't gonna lie, he's just gonna go out there and kill him. You know, it's not too much to it. He's just gonna go out there and ball. He's just gonna go out there and kill him. He's just gonna go out there and kill him.
Wow. It was towards the end of his comments, and you hear how soft-spoken he is, right? I think that question was, what jumps out to you about Georgia State on film? Or what's going to be a successful night? It was one or the other, right? Those were asked of kind of everybody. Good standard first game questions with a game like this for South Carolina against Georgia State. And to hear defensive players like Cam Smith, Jordan Strawn say a 0. We want a goose egg. Shut out. That's the goal. That would be a good night. That would be a success. That's confident, man. That is probably not recommended. It was not what I've heard in years past, where clearly anyone who earned the massive privilege, I say that with eyes rolled, who earned the trust of Will Muschamp, who nearly was pushed out there and told, I think, behind the scenes, you must say this, I felt like. You must be the robot and say, we really respect our opponent. They are well coached. And it is going to be a rock fight was Frank Martin's kind of deal. It wasn't maybe how did Will Muschamp go into that? I don't know what his cliche was, but just a list of cliches, and you're only allowed to say that basically. Don't have any personality. Good for Juice Wells. I don't know if we'll ever see him in a weekly press conference again, or he'll even be made available after games. Confident. And again, these are games. Nick, great point, man. The most dangerous guys are always the soft-spoken ones. He's got me convinced. Just going to go out there and kill him. Of course, that's the mindset. We all know it. It's refreshing to hear it. Now, will Georgia State pop it on their bulletin board or put it up? Will Sean Elliott play that over and over for his players? Yeah, probably. Is that going to make a big difference? Is Georgia State going to come in here more focused or energetic because of it? No, get out of here. I don't think so. Yeah, now Daddy-O, you're right. Now he has set himself up for post-game comments. I told you guys we're going to kill him. Or, we got killed. I don't know what I was talking about. But the fact that you can come out and say that first game in a South Carolina uniform for Wells, transferring from James Madison, having put up really good numbers, one of the reasons why the transfer class is as well respected as it is. I love it. That is what college football is to me. Let's hear some more, I'd say, relative confident talk. This is certainly more measured, more polished, I think is the best way to put it, but still confident. Spencer Rattler, the Oklahoma transfer, ahead of his first South Carolina football game.
And we all get on a clean little suit, get to go out there, look good. Hopefully we play good because we look good.
What are you most excited about now getting in front of the South Carolina fans for the first time?
Mm-hmm. Exactly that. I'm just excited to see all the fans out there. Hear 2001 play, Sandstorm, all that. I'm excited for it. Running out that tunnel with my team, with the coaches, everything. And, hopefully get the anxiety out the way, anxious anxiety, just fun. Ready to go vibes. Not nervous, but just excited, if you know what I mean. But it's going to be fun.
Spencer, what certain tone or message do you guys hope to set in game one?
We just want to go out there and execute on every level and dominate. That's what we want to do. We want to go out there and not react, but do what we do and get into them. So that's the plan. We're just going to execute every play and play as good as we can. You got to keep the same mindset, which is attack. Just being here is a blessing with this team. Camp was great. Spring ball was great. Fall camp was great. So I feel like we're prepared, and we got a few more days of work, like I said, and we're just excited to play, excited to get out there. It's refreshing for sure.
Spencer Rattler, weekly press conference number one ahead of game number one in a Gamecock uniform. Attack. Want to dominate. But how he said it was very polished. A guy who's clearly been in the spotlight. But isn't that exactly what you want to hear as a Gamecock fan? I mean, that is, I guess maybe we heard that to some degree, but you always felt like you heard you got to take what the defense gives you, and we got to put ourselves in the right kind of place from the previous regime. Right? And we certainly didn't see attack last year outside of, well, I guess Jason Brown did have that feel as a bit of a gunslinger, right? In Florida, obviously worked well with Carolina, having two guys that ran for more than 100 yards in that ballgame. But the last time we saw the South Carolina offense, they were attacking North Carolina, and Jaheim Bell was doing basically whatever he wanted. York says, I can recall a recruit in the boom era that said he was scared in our locker room when our guys were talking about killing the other team. He eventually went to the Vols. Yeah. I remember hearing about that as well. Obviously, Rattler has everyone excited. I'm excited to see the running back group, Nick says. Marshawn Lloyd sounds like he's back to 100%. Juju is a shifty speedster. I see what you're trying to do to me there, Nick. Shifty speedster. Should be fun to watch. And Josh says, what Spencer Rattler was really saying is we're going to kill him. He kind of was. He also mentioned Darius Clucker, Cock Commander, was asked about the general thing. Mentioned he took a trip up to Charlotte recently. A lot of Gamecock fans showing him support in that area as well. The day trip with a girlfriend up to Charlotte, as the adjustment has gone well, said what he needs to say. The Spencer Rattler entire situation, I think, has been handled about as well as you can handle it from both his perspective and the program's perspective. Meaning that I don't think he wasn't instantly thrust out there, right, and put in a lot of positions where he was going to be asked about the Boomer Schooner or specifics at Oklahoma, right? He's been relatively under the radar, but he's had to answer some questions, and he's done it, I think, in a professional way. It's probably the best way to describe that. To me, has shown good decision-making skills, goes into it, being a quarterback, right? You have to make the decision to kind of take the high road in this situation. You don't want to air dirty laundry and the whole thing. No, I didn't say he lives in Charlotte. He just took a day trip up to Charlotte with a girlfriend, he said. Babes and waves. I don't even know how to refer to you. BW. How about that? B-Dub. You're the one that, was it Monday, said, wait, Corey Miller played with Lawrence Taylor? The exact same thing. I love that you like to press the pause button. Wait, Spencer Rattler lives in Charlotte? No. We may see a 70-yard pass attempt Saturday. Got to show Arkansas we can stretch the field on one play, Daddy-O says. Really? That would be interesting. To me, I think we overanalyze that so much. Let's be very clear. Here's how I see this thing. If South Carolina thinks they can hold anything back in the playbook for Arkansas or Georgia in week number 1, I think those coaches should lose their jobs. I'm talking about what I saw last year in its entirety, especially from the offense. That was 100 plus in most rankings, including total offense, points scored. If you think you can hold anything back against Georgia State in your opener in year number 2 because you're playing some sort of chess match with the next game in mind, you ain't doing your job at all. And I think every single coach would tell you that. I think we overanalyze this. And no problem there, B-Dub. Just tuned in. LOL. York's with me here. So you guys got to get out of that mindset. South Carolina is not at that point yet. You want to talk about Clemson and Georgia Tech and them playing the long game and what they might be able to hold back and the whole thing? Yeah, you can do that. Coming off of 10-3, though, and their offense struggling, I doubt they're going to do that. They need to get that program back to feeling dominant and showing dominance, being dominant. And we hype that up so much, I think, as fans. Sometimes, now, if South Carolina was playing South Carolina State, not Georgia State, but South Carolina State in week number 1, maybe. I'd still tell you, nope, I don't think they can. You got to go make sure you do everything that needs to be done, especially with a new quarterback. And I get it. He's an experienced quarterback, but not in a South Carolina uniform. With new receivers like Juice Wells. Corey Rucker likely not to play in this game, but Xavier Legette is pretty much, to me, a new receiver. If he's good enough to be an SEC quality receiver, we hadn't seen that from him. Maybe briefly as a freshman at the end of his career in 1 or 2 games. Just this program's not there. And they know it. Coaches know it more than anybody, right? I mean, they coached in those games last year that did not go well. They were there on the sidelines against Tennessee and Texas A&M and Clemson. Release the Kraken, Nick says. Not in a position to hold anything back. Completely agree. So if we see that, we might overanalyze it, their daddy-o, as, oh, they just needed to show Arkansas something and make them prepare for the whole thing. I think that if you see a long pass attempt, I think Marcus Satterfield is completely convinced that they can hit a long pass, and it needs to be done in that game to win that game. And if we don't see a deep ball from Spencer Rattler on Saturday, I think there's a big problem. To me, that goes as a glaring neon sign that there's no confidence in the offensive line, no ability in the offensive line, or your offense just, or maybe because of that, your offense isn't going to be very good. You can't do it against Georgia State. You're going to be able to do it against Arkansas or Georgia? Yeah. Thanks for letting me go on a rant there, huh? Normally, teams don't look ahead because it's week 1 or it's 1 week, but if they do look ahead to Arkansas, they will get beat. I'm not even talking about a team looking ahead. I'm talking about the idea that a coaching staff can hold things back or will do things specifically for week 2 in the season or to set things up to make sure that's out there. That's not a thing for Carolina. And I don't think it's a real thing for most, if not all, college football programs, NFL ones. I think as fans, we overanalyze that way too much. What do you guys make of this? And I brought it up. This is a classic summer topic that has now been thrust at us right in the time where we don't care very much anymore. It's all about talking about the games. But South Carolina announcing yesterday, the athletics department putting it out there, that it's the first in the country to establish an in-house name, image, and likeness marketing agency, right? The Everett Sports Management Group up in the upstate that has NFL clients. They have signed a 2-year, $2.2 million contract or something like that with the university. It was privately funded, as I understand it. So I think Ray Tanner got someone to foot the bill here, basically saying, we want to sell in recruiting that we're doing the most possible to get the best deals out there. That's how I internalize this. That's how I translate yesterday's news. And it didn't take a lot to put it that way, I don't think. I think it was pretty much spelled out there. I'm not trying to tell you that I'm some sort of tea leaf reader on this one. I'm just not sure. I think most of us aren't sure. I don't know if the people doing it, having talked to Hillary Cox, who's in charge of name, image, and likeness over at Carolina, just her perception, the way that she communicated to us when we talked to her, that was a couple of months ago, maybe now, 6 weeks ago, just how things changed so dramatically and how her life has changed so dramatically. Basically 180 degrees, saying, no, you can't accept any kind of money, to saying, no, you should go ask them to give you some money. But now to have, I guess, the agency there at Everett Sports Agency, Sports Management, has a separate branch. This deal created a separate branch specifically for the Gamecocks. They're calling it Park Ave, I think. And that is where the top, the upper echelon, it looks like that's what South Carolina came to the conclusion of, that's where it could be most advantageous in recruiting with a guy like G.G. Jackson, I'm sure, with these football recruits. 4 stars keep stacking up for a reason, I think. I find it hard to believe that this news, the fact that this was going to happen, hasn't been mentioned to their families that, hey, we're being aggressive here. We're getting after it. First in the country to make sure you have an agent, basically, that you don't have to pay for. The school is paying for your agent. Isn't this nuts? Agents used to be the enemy of athletics departments. Agents were only going to get you in NCAA trouble or get your guys away from your program sooner. Convince them that leaving the program as early as possible was the best thing they could do. And now the athletics department has not only partnered with those agencies, paying them. They're paying the agents for the kids. Nuts. It's crazy, man. But clearly, Ray Tanner and company think it's an advantage in the recruiting game to say, hey, look what we got. We're the first ones to do this. You come play for South Carolina, you got an agent. You don't have to pay for it. It's a pretty bold move, man. And to me, it tells me a lot about what's actually going on in recruiting right now. I mean, the fact that Hillary told us when we talked with her, I asked, like, how much does the SEC come in and how much do you guys kind of talk and trade notes in the SEC? She's like, we don't. We're recruiting against them. There ain't much of that. There's a lot of, hey, we don't want you to know what we're doing. And so to put this out there and to be the first to do it shows me that you talk about being aggressive, and she talked about that. I feel like every athletics department in the country says something to that effect, right? We're not going to be reactive. We're going to be proactive. We're going to go out there and help our student athletes the most. Well, this was kind of putting your money where your mouth is, literally like $2 million worth. And I mean, it's so crazy to me. The fact that it was against the rules for your athletes to make money, and now you can pay for their agents. Wow. And then use that as a recruiting tool. It's crazy, man. Crazy. And the laws in South Carolina, Daddy-O says, allow for more flexibility versus other states. How I read it. Yeah, that's a little misleading, right? Because the law in South Carolina was restrictive. They thought it was going to be proactive, right? And say, yeah, everybody and all the athletes can make money, but it's just that the schools can't help them. And now that there's a suspension of that law for 365 days while they rewrite it, basically. Because it turned out to be what you're talking about, less flexibility. More other states had more flexibility. Josh says it's smart. Shows we are going for it. Oh, yeah, even if, like, I don't know how much real world implications this has, other than it sounds like top 25 to 35 athletes in the athletics department will benefit most from this. We'll have that staff of 5 working deals for them more than everybody else, and then they'll try to expand that to others. But they're taking care of. I mean, they basically just said, right? These are for the top line players. Mostly, we are getting, because that's who is in most demand. So we need to help them the most. And if done well, Josh says it's a win-win for the students and the university. I don't see how you see it other than that. But zoom out from there and just to realize how crazy a spot we're in college. I mean, how drastic a change. So crazy, man. And to me, it's hypocritical is not the right word, but it just reminds me of those conversations that you would have just about, I mean, the disdain that coaches would have for agents. Like I talked about physical reactions to questions from players or coaches in press conferences, and you would just get, if you brought up, it was such a fight, I think, especially in college basketball. I mean, we all understand the Adidas, the Nike, the connections with those entities in college basketball, how they affected recruiting, how the FBI, the investigation, the whole thing. South Carolina assistant coach, Lamont Evans, went to jail because of it. And now to get here, crazy, man. Yeah, good question here, Daddy-O. Does NIL ultimately keep more potential non-first and second round picks at school another year? I would have to think so. You'd have to think so, man. Before name, image, and likeness money came along. If you've ever been on a college campus, you know, especially like South Carolina, those athletes are living well in general compared to other students. So now you add this on top of it. I think that might become the trend, right? I mean, even you could even argue, even if you're a first or second round pick, if you're not, I mean, if you're a mid second round pick, the difference between that and then even mid first round or high first round is massive from an earning potential standpoint, from a signing bonus standpoint. So the idea of being developed one more year, of continuing to earn a solid amount of money, continuing to build the brand, or I don't know what the sell is going to be exactly. I don't know how they're going to package that up, I guess. I don't know if schools like South Carolina or Clemson or anywhere else will has that ready to go, has that sales pitch ready yet, because so much stuff is just happening. Like this announcement just came, but I'm sure that will be all part of the pitch. But then you also have to be cognizant of, well, the reverse of that would be that they're trying to keep you from going and making your big payday, which is clearly part of the sales pitch now, that no, we're going to help you. We're here to help you make money and already make relationships, have a relationship with companies before you even sign that pro deal. Nick says it's a big deal, an even bigger deal that the agency involved is exclusive to us countrywide for a year, statewide, and SEC-wide for year number 2. I don't think so, Nick. Like, I get it. That was an interesting detail in this contract that Everett Sports Management can't now sign up with Clemson and then everybody else around the state, but nothing's going to keep them from going to University of North Carolina, right? And who's to say that there's not going to be another agency that goes I'm sure they're fighting each other now, right, to get in at other schools. There are a lot of conversations happening, I think, if they weren't happening already, which I'm sure they were. But now, as a result of this news going national yesterday, it's on ticker, right? That athletic department programs out there, they have to deal with this now. This is a thing. South Carolina made this a thing. So if you're not doing it, it's going to be easy to be seen as having a disadvantage in recruiting. So there are going to be agencies all over the place fighting to get these $2 million contracts, $1 million a year kind of deal. Nick says, correct. Just good to get that up front. But to me, I read that as, oh, no, they're trying to set the trend here and protect themselves in the same step. And here we go. Crazy to me. Crazy. But that's where we are. But as on the final day of August in 2022, man, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Juice Wells, thank you, by the way. We got to just, every now and again, I'm just going to hit this button.
I ain't gonna lie, he's just gonna go out there and kill him. It's not too much to it. He's just gonna go out there and ball. He's just gonna go out there and kill him. He's just gonna go out there and kill him.
I smile every time. I could probably watch that 100 times and smile every time. It's just the brutal honesty. The pure honesty in that is what, I mean, that's a lot what I connect to in college football. The pure emotion, right? From fans, players, coaches, everybody connected one way or the other. The elation, the disappointment, the frustration, the anger. violence, all of it, man. And it starts with the Thursday night backyard brawl, West Virginia and Pitt. Just one of the best opening weekends we've seen in college football, and college football deserves the credit here. I get it, college sports in general, with this name, image, likeness stuff, especially the NCAA, always everyone's whipping boy, right? What are they doing? They're not doing anything. There's no leadership. You got to give college football power brokers, and even if it is just for TV ratings, maybe ESPN executives just deserve all the credit for this, for making good TV. Because I think all of these games are on ESPN or ABC that I wrote down. They absolutely are. So this is what Fox saw coming and has now tried to, has invested into keeping from happening in the future, where ESPN, the family of networks there, ESPN and ABC, just has the monopoly over the first weekend. Thursday through Monday. Fridays, nothing's really happening. Michigan State plays Western Michigan, right? All right. So, I mean, you can watch. That Friday night college football just seems weird to me still. Maybe it's all those years of going to high school football games as a local TV guy. So if you're into it, I get it, and I'll probably turn it on. I think it was with Charlotte beating Duke on a Friday night last season, early on. But you got the backyard brawl with Pitt Thursday night. Then the slate on Saturday, fantastic, starting with NC State, East Carolina, Oregon and Georgia, Cincinnati and Arkansas. So before the Carolina game, wild tailgating at Williams-Brice Stadium or at your home. You also get to scout. And they get some serious challenges, or at least on paper. And that Arkansas spread's just, 6, I say? Yep, check that. Georgia's favored by 17, even though Oregon's ranked 11th. They are playing that game in Atlanta, so a de facto home game. And the night games that you might be keeping an eye on as well while Carolina is playing. Georgia State, the Utah-Florida score for sure will be interesting. And that's a 7 o'clock kick, so you get maybe half of the first quarter before the Carolina game. Notre Dame, Ohio State will be the exact same time. Then after all of the chaos on Saturday, or all the action, you can sit back and watch a little Florida State LSU Sunday night. Clemson, Georgia Tech on Monday. What a great weekend. Go Mountaineers, Chris says. My second team grew up wearing Gamecock and Mountaineer gear, had family in Morgantown. Nope, Chris definitely went through the CarQuest Bowl then in 94? New Year's Day 95? How'd that work, Chris? When Carolina beat West Virginia for the first bowl win ever. Good question, Nick. Notre Dame, Ohio State, another pumped-up game just to be a rout. New coach, rebuilding talent. Is that where we are in college football? Rebuilding talent is the number 5 team in the country? I guess it depends how you define that, right? Nick Saban says you can go play in the national championship game like Alabama did last year in a rebuilding year. I think Marcus Freeman is going to be a good fit there. It's going to be a fascinating experiment, though. It's going to be really interesting to see because, I mean, you guys see this, what Lou Holtz had to say about Brian Kelly? I'm going to play that thing again. I mean, it's classic Holtz. And it's a really interesting window into Brian Kelly, I think, in a lot of ways. Let's see if we can get that up and rolling. Stealing this from my buddy Mike Gillespie over at ABC Columbia, who's going to join us tomorrow. We got 3 guests on the docket tomorrow. Let's see if we can get some just classic Lou Holtz here.
I rate Brian Kelly maybe 8 positive letters during his time at Notre Dame. And I go to the mailbox every day hoping I'm going to find an answer. He never responded to one of them. So, but that's his choice. I answered every letter came into Notre Dame. When you get a nasty letter, you write, Dear Jim. Just so you ought to know that some idiot's writing this letter signing your name and hurt your reputation and find out who it is and put a stop to it. But Brian Kelly didn't believe in that. And I am sure he'll be very successful at LSU. He's been everywhere. But you're going to find out he's not going to be playing Toledo. He's not going to be playing Marshall. This conference is a little bit different. I rate Brian
Classic
Kelly
Blue Hole.
maybe 8.
Can't make that up, man. And I think that those smiles, him being passive aggressive there, kind of sums up where most of us will be from the college football perspective, I think. My wife went to Florida State, so I'm a little biased here. She got to see a national championship during her college days. I saw 21 losses in a row going to South Carolina. LSU just had a national championship not too long ago. Their last 3 head coaches all have won national championships. And now Brian Kelly comes bringing his fake Southern accent. And I put at LSU. I think this one technically is in New Orleans, right? So just like that Georgia-Oregon game, technically neutral site. I'm sure plenty of Florida State fans will have traveled down there, but that program, how far it's fallen recently, I think they're all convinced that convincing themselves that Mike Norvell can be the guy who can get them back. Facilities are coming along. That Jimbo divorce, several years removed now. Post Ed Orgeron era at LSU. I think all of college football will be sitting back kind of snickering at this game. Saying, look at these guys. Remember when they were good? They're going to have a rough. Anything that goes wrong. Jason says, lose a classic, no doubt. BW, you should have tried to email him. I love the writing of the letters. Classic for sure. So anytime we can bring up, anytime a legendary coach calls out the current coach, and now I guess Lou Holtz felt like he could do it now that he's left Notre Dame, right? It's not a Notre Dame issue, but fascinating behind the scenes kind of deal, and I can't wait to watch the LSU Brian Kelly years. So Sunday night, I'm excited to have that. It's a perfect kind of pacing, and then the Clemson Georgia Tech game. I don't think any of us are anticipating this thing's going to stay close. If it's close in the first half at halftime, it's not a 3-touchdown game, plus 17 or more, I think most of us will be surprised. But we'll see, right? And I think we're going to know a lot about Clemson in this game, right? Their dominance last year, it just wasn't what it had been. So if they dominate Georgia Tech, I think there will be the usual split right down the state of South Carolina, right? Clemson fans, we're back. South Carolina fans, pipe down. It's Georgia Tech. They stink. What a great first weekend of college football. Troy says, I love Oregon plus 17, which means Georgia will win by 35. Great point, Troy. So what are you feeling most confident in? You have a one bet to make. Where you're making that bet? I think the most confident Gamecock fans would say minus 12, 11.5, whatever it is. Chris going with the classic line. Go Yellow Jackets. Favorite teams, Carolina, and whoever's playing Clemson. So, yeah, a lot of Georgia, South Carolina crossover here with Georgia Tech and Clemson, Georgia State and Carolina. Georgia coming to Williams-Brice in how many days now? 17? Is that what it is? So, Oregon, you're feeling most confident with, Troy. I would caution you on that one, man. Good luck with that. Not me. Because you got to know, too, man. Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart every single day to that defense, telling them what – who brought it up? Nick earlier did? Look at how many guys we lost Everyone is saying you guys stink. You can't be nearly as good as the last guy. Every single day. And it's one thing to do that with regular players, but they got really good players. So I think I saw it for the first time with Brent Venables several years ago when Clemson lost a bunch off their defense, and they didn't take a step back at all. They defined reloading that year. And I'll be very surprised if Georgia doesn't do it. Oregon's offense has no shot, Chris says. All right, so I'm convincing you. Anytime you get ranked opponents where the spread's pretty large, I don't get close to those things. The Notre Dame and Ohio State, basically same spread there, 17. Not getting close to that. I think I would feel most confident as I'm looking at these games, the ones that we talked about now. I think I feel most confident. I rank Arkansas number 1. I think they will win by at least 7 points. The spread's at 6. That spread was at 7.5. Maybe I don't feel that way. Right? But Arkansas 1, Utah 2, and NC State 3. That's where I'm at, confidence-wise. NC State's favored by 11.5. It's at East Carolina. Yes, it's a rivalry. But I think North Carolina State is going to be a really solid team. Who put it up yesterday? Matt Connolly, who covers Clemson, put up the stats, just was going back over some stuff he said and mentioned the stats, how NC State had 31 first downs last year and Clemson had 10 in that game. That's nuts. I don't think it'll be easy for NC State, but I do think it'll be one of those games where they just have too much talent and the physical advantage, and it will get them a 2-touchdown win, I feel like, at East Carolina. That 11.5, I think, is what you want to lay in that one. I think Arkansas is just going to be too physical playing against Cincinnati. Cincinnati, a bunch to prove and the whole thing. I like Arkansas in that game. I definitely think they win it by a touchdown or more. You think it should be a good one, Nick? I hope so. I hope we get a bunch of good games. It should have made it a doubleheader in Atlanta. South Carolina, Georgia State, Clemson, Georgia Tech. That'd be interesting. Now, I'm over the neutral site game. I think the Charlotte thing has pretty much run its course for South Carolina. Like, that was always a thing, right? Why wouldn't they do that? Why set it up right there? Well, they jack up the ticket prices, number one, and then you don't get the atmosphere. It's kind of like Kirby Smart was advocating, right? The world's largest cocktail party, a little different in Jacksonville with Georgia and Florida in the long-standing tradition, kind of like Oklahoma and Texas at the State Fair. South Carolina, North Carolina at Bank of America Stadium does not compare to that, don't get me wrong, but they just didn't go about it the right way. You almost discouraged fans from coming by jacking up the ticket prices. And then that leads to a deflated environment as opposed to what you get when you're at a home stadium. And so that's why I kind of like the idea of Georgia and Florida going to a home and home. But I get it. It's part of what makes college football unique and different to have a neutral site game. But I think it needs to be more like an environment that is outside, that does have history attached, as opposed to try to make it up. Right? They just try to conjure it out of thin air. Like those Charlotte matchups, a lot of times it's difficult. And it's also that I just love the home game feel, everything that's involved with that. Even going, on a road trip. I even went out to Missouri. Been out to Missouri a couple of times, which no one would say is a great football environment. A great time. And you get to sneak in a Cardinals game if the schedule works out. Even better. So BW is with me. Home games over other venues, in my opinion. Is it 24 or 26 that Texas and Oklahoma move over? Great. Sorry, 24 or 25, Nick says. Great question, Nick. I think it's going to be 24. Officially right now it's 2025 because that's the Big 12 has the media rights for Texas and Oklahoma through 2024. So it's going to cost a ton of money for those schools to get out of that contract a year early. I think that's going to happen. I think the SEC/Texas and Oklahoma will end up coming up with that money. But right now, as we sit here on August 31st, 2022, it's 2025 when Texas and Oklahoma officially enter the SEC. I'll believe it when I see it. When we're sitting here on August 31st, 2024, and that hasn't happened, I'll believe that. I guess maybe this time next year if it hasn't been announced. Yeah, I don't know, Nick. He says might see a few more neutral site games pop up when they do. There's so much that can happen before then. I mean, so much has happened already. Chris says, I'll take Florida at home. Cool. Good luck with that, with the upset in game one of the Billy Napier era. Putting your confidence in Anthony Richardson against a solid program. Look, I don't know what to make of Utah, and I get it. Traditionally, I'd be with you, right? You got an SEC blue blood in Florida against the defending Pac-12 champs, but a perception standpoint, you always take the SEC over anybody in these kind of matchups. Maybe anybody but Clemson recently. But Florida is not what Florida has been. Utah, I don't think, is what some other Pac-12 teams have been either. In a complimentary way, I'm talking about. What looks too good here? He's talking about Oregon. Troy's talking about Oregon and Georgia, I think, looks too good. So does Notre Dame. That's what scares me. Yeah, that's why I wouldn't touch 17. I know it's a massive spread for both of those games. I've always preferred the smaller lines there, and then you can pull for more plays as opposed to feeling like you've got a big cushion to start with, and the big plays just chip away and chip away. It's not a fun way for me to watch a game. That's how I see that, though. All right, anything as we sit here, we're going to be guest heavy tomorrow. Got buddy Stuart Lake joining us in the first hour. Then Patrick DeMarco. We talked a little bit about name, image, and likeness stuff. We'll talk a lot more about that and get a lot more expertise from him. The former Gamecock, the All-Pro, as a fullback in the NFL, was the last time we talked to him. The first time on this show, 2 months ago, I think, somewhere in there, was still player development / analyst for the Gamecock football program. Now his title has been redefined as a name, image, and likeness guy. Really interested in hearing his thoughts about this latest development that popped up yesterday. First in the country to have the in-house NIL marketing firm. So we got Patrick set for 9 to 9:30 tomorrow. Then ABC Columbia Sports Director Mike Gillespie set at 9:30. They've got their preview Gamecock football special popping out, I believe, 7 o'clock on Friday night. A half hour of all Gamecock football headed into the season opener on Saturday. Got Savell Newton set up for Friday. We get the picks going on Friday. Man, football season. So much fun. Joshua, where did this come from? Please, please, please beat Kentucky. Do I have to play? I'm not going to play it again. You guys are just going to make fun of his hairline. Just cruel. I'm going to say, do I have to play Mark Stoops again from yesterday? Talking about he anticipates it might be multiple game suspension for several of his players. Then asked, what are the details of those suspensions or something to that effect? Like, well, I didn't say suspension. It reminded me as I watched it of my high school athletic trainer talking about concussions. I remember taking a sports medicine class with him. Mr. Burney back in the day says he's experienced as a Shrine Bowl athletic trainer at Southern Guilford High School. always talking about how most guys who get concussions just say, come over to the sidelines and talking, making sure, answering questions. They'll say, what happened? Oh, okay. And then a few minutes later, talking to him out of nowhere. What happened? Suspensions. No, I didn't say suspension. Unreal, man. Crazy to me. So I see we're coming right up on the 10 o'clock time that we usually get out here. Yeah, Nick, great one. Reminded me of Rick James talking about rubbing his muddy boots. Charlie Murphy. It's crazy. Apologize for the technical difficulties off the top here that started us a little late. Really appreciate all you guys weighing in today and could not be more excited about college football getting going. Happy week 1, college football eve, everybody. Yeah, backyard brawl tomorrow. We'll talk about it more. DC's peacing out on us. Chris on Facebook Live says, have a good day, fellow Gamecocks. Good one as always, Tim. 3 days left. Almost there. You know what we got to do. Halfway to Saturday, Roger's saying. Play it again. You know I got to. B-Dub and I, we're on the same page. What a great way to get out today. Thank you, Juice Wells. So what's the goal? Playing Georgia State in the season opener?
I ain't gonna lie, he's just gonna go out there and kill him. You know, it's not too much to it. He's just gonna go out there and ball. He's just gonna go out there and kill him. He's just gonna go out there and kill him.
Football season's here. August is in the books for this show. We'll see you in September tomorrow. Thanks for checking out Unrestricted Free Agent. That'll do it for today. Football. All caps, exclamation points. Great way to end the program, Jason. That'll do it for UFA today.